Have tremendous values, and you've got to have a lot of competitive nature in you in order to do this, because the work is too hard if you don't. So that one reason we show cows, I think, is because it gives our kids value, and it gives our kids a competitive nature that they learn. I think another thing that's very important is friendship. Every one of you here, by the time you leave, you're going to meet new people and you're going to have new friends. And part of what's fun about going to the shows is catching up with friends. And I look at some of these pictures from not so old people, I would say, Fitzy, those guys aren't old at all, to some of these guys that were the herdsmen of the day, but they still are connected. They're still on committees together. They still get together every year at World Dairy Expo. This group of people that like to show cows and that like to breed cows, they are a fraternity. They are a group. And I really think friendship is one of the great things that we get out of doing all this. Excellent, Sharon. Leadership, education, and knowledge. Those are three things that I think when you leave this place, I believe you'll get a little bit of an education in each of those. Leadership. You're going to learn some things today that you can take back to your 4-H club, that you can teach other people. I think education, if we didn't have the greatest people in the business here willing to teach you guys today, education, it would fall short. People don't think about this as being as an educational event. That's all it is. We're just trying to teach. And then knowledge, the only way you can gain this knowledge is to hear it from experts. You can read it in books, but if you're not listening to the experts, you're not asking questions, you're not going to gain the knowledge you need. And this little event right here will give you the knowledge you need to get better at what you're doing. And then I think another reason we show cows is for herdsmanship and promotion. Again, I got this group of people from the past that were all outstanding herdsmen that went on the boxcars, that traveled the country with their cows. But I also say promotion. Each of you needs to think about the fact that when you go out on the show string and you go out with your show cows, it's a promotional event. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called a show. You'd just call it an exhibition. You are out there to display your cattle and to display yourself. And I think promotion is another reason that we show cows. So the next little session that I want to go through is, so over the years this has changed. And I challenge each of you to think about it and look at the difference. And I know it's a little tough to see with our fancy screen. But think about how the cows have changed in my lifetime. This is one of the great cows of the breed. This is Roxy. And she's an excellent 97-point cow. And look at the way that cow looks compared to, this is Haley, a cow that was right here at Cowtown Holsteins and went on to be champion at several of the big shows. Any judges in the room? Is there a difference between these two cows? You guys see that? Look at how much progress we've made in the way our cows look. Does anybody like Roxy better than Haley? If you were judging them today? I thought Nelson would at least. No, Nelson's not going to disagree with me. But isn't that amazing, guys? When you pull up two cows like this, the kind of cow that we looked at has changed this much, and this is in 20 years. So the next slide, probably the greatest show cow ever, is over on my far side. That's Charity. Charity won more championship banners probably than any cow will ever win. I doubt there'll ever be another cow that will compete with Charity with her success. And I'm a little partial to this cow. This is a cow that I'm part of that won the Royal this year. But look at the difference in those two cows. Again, Charity, one of the great champions ever, but we've got a whole different look to our cows today. And I guess maybe that's why I bring these up, not because you're going to remember the cows, but the guys and the gals that present to you today, they're today's generation. But you guys are the next generation. You're the next Haleys and you're the next Camerons. You're the people that are going to lead us down the road, and you're going to be giving these presentations in 4 or 5 years. So changes over the years are important in cows, but they're also important in people. So today's shows, and we can see one of our presenters here without his hat on, and boy, you can see, yeah, right there, the Dusty Sherman. See that guy with no hat? He really looks good with no hat. But this is what today's shows look like. And I bring this up because a lot of you A lot of you may have never seen a big show, you may have never been there, and you may never go to a big show. But you don't know, again, I go back to basketball, you don't know what the NCAA championship's about if you don't turn on the TV and watch March Madness. You don't know what today's shows are about if you don't look at the Holstein world and get on the internet and see what the cows look like and what the competition looks like. So this is what today's shows look like. And as you can see, compared to some of the pictures of old that I put up, there's still pomp and circumstance. There's still excitement. People still have the passion and the preparation to compete. And that's what this is all about when you get at the very next level. And it doesn't matter if you're at your county fair or you're at the biggest shows in the world. Winning is what you go for. And I'm not saying winning is how you determine your success. But you're going to compete. And when you can have success, then you feel like you've done what you set out to achieve. So today's shows are very competitive, and it doesn't matter what level you're at, you can still have the ability to show at this level, and that's why we're here. Next slide, Sharon. And I bring up a couple guys that I want you to think about as you go through today, and again, it tells you about the people that we have. You can see this guy here, Pete Heffering. Pete Heffering's the guy that owned Charity, and Pete had Hanover Hill Holsteins, who was one of the great breeding establishments ever in the Holstein business. This guy would come to events like this, and he would talk to the young Rick Allens and Jamie Blacks and Adam Littles and Tim Abbotts, and he taught us about the business. And actually, Pete was born in Vermont, and the reason I bring him up, but I think it's important to know how much talent we have right here. One of the great men ever in the Holstein breed is Pete Heffering, and he was born right here in Vermont and would have done the same thing back in the day. And then over in the middle is a guy called Bob Lord that ran the Billings farm in Vermont. Back in his day, Bob Lord used to, when I was a kid, he used to take a string of Jersey show cattle to Louisville every year to the All-American, and he would let the kids go with him and help him take care of them so they got the exposure. And honestly, that's exactly how I got started in the business. I went with Bob Lord one year to Louisville. My cow had been champion at Franklin County Fair, at the Orleans County Fair, at Franklin County or Lyndonville Fair, and she went to Louisville to compete at the biggest show of jerseys in the world. She was on the colored shavings. It was the greatest day of my life. She was dead ass last. I couldn't figure out what happened. But that day I figured out that, you know what? It's about competing and it's about learning. And from that point on, I'll never forget. That day I called my dad and I said, there's a sale down here and I want to buy a calf. My dad didn't have $1,500 to buy a calf. And he told me I could buy a calf if I went to the banker when I got home. And I bought that calf, I went to the banker, and thank goodness he gave me the money. But that's how I got started in the business. A guy like Bob Lord took me, again, to see what the world's about. And I bring that up to you guys because you don't have to go anywhere. You've got that right here in front of you. Then to wrap up my little talk here, Sharon, if you go to the next slide. You know, can this impact your life? And I look around the room, and there'll be a lot of you that show in 4-H and show in junior activities, and it won't have any impact on your life. But if you choose to have it impact your life, it can. And I don't care if you go down the road and you have cattle someday, or you're a businessman, or you're on Wall Street, or you're a fashion designer. What you're learning today and the ethics you're getting from this is what's going to drive you for the future. And I look at, can this impact your lives? And I look at this. Anybody know who that guy is? He had hair back then. So that's Dusty Shern. And that's me before I had gray hair. I judged Dusty when he was a kid at Louisville in a competition, and old Dusty won that day, which is amazing. And then you've got a picture of me when I had my first job with the Jersey Association way back in the day. And I bring up these pictures because I say, it wasn't that long ago, I was sitting right there. Dusty Shern was sitting right there. Adam Little was right there, wanting to learn about this business. So can this thing impact your life? Yeah, it absolutely can. And I guess the real world example, again, to talk a little bit about Sharon and I and what we've done. Again, we grew up here in Vermont in the 4-H program. We did the judging, we did the FFA work. And we sat here just like you guys. Many times, neither of us had cattle that could compete at the big shows. But the one thing we always knew is we could control our own destiny with how our cattle looked. And that's preparation-wise. And we had to learn to get our cattle prepared well. And the one thing we could compete in was fitting and showmanship. Because it doesn't matter how bad your cow is. It doesn't matter how bad the environment she's in. If you work hard enough with that cow or that heifer, she's going to be able to compete at the highest level. And I think that's one thing kids forget. You talk about winning and who's going to buy this calf, who's going to buy that calf. Don't worry about that. Control the things you can control. And you can control how your animal leads. You can control how your animal looks. And you can control how she's prepared the day of the show. You can't control how the judge is going to like her. You can't control if somebody wants to have bigger calves or go spend more money on the calves. But you can always compete with the things you can control. And I guess the one thing that I like to pass on, that I think we've learned over the years, is if you do this within your own realm, you'll be very happy. So we're going to talk a lot about the national level and what you got to do to get to the very top. But don't forget, getting to the top for each of you means something different. And so I challenge you today as you go through the next few hours, and we got several hours today, we've got several hours tomorrow, but I challenge you to think about what the presenters are saying, ask questions, and realize that each one of us was here just like you 20, 30, 40 years ago, wanting to get the same answers. So welcome to the summit. I hope you're excited as I am to get this information. Have a great time, meet each other, and I'm going to turn it over to Martha, who's going to talk a little bit about the schedule. Thank you for coming.